The Phone 3a design has just been revealed. Periscope camera, slick design. Our designers, my soon-to-be best friends, spent months getting it right. In this convo, I got to see the prototypes that didn't make the cut, the groundbreaking tech hidden inside, and even an exclusive look at Phone 3. Let's go check it out. Can you guys walk me through how the design for this starts? Does Carl just come to you guys and is like, hey, can you design a new phone, please?
We know the product is coming, from the point where we finish 2A, we're already starting to think about, what this next version could or should be.
And then the first official thing that happens is a kickoff where you find out very rough spec.
You guys have like a repository for all those ideas that come to you that might not apply to the current phone you're working on, so you can go back later and check it out.
We do like making books. There's some photos of the studio. This is like just people's desks, top view. There's references, there's things like that, which is just an advert slot in the tube that didn't have anything in it, and it was just interesting, so I took a picture of it. This is some ideas on a watch that we're looking at. There's some kind of book covers, typography.
What's included in that spec?
Usually the key driver initially is the display itself. In the early stage of a project, you'll have a few potential routes that you can go to. It's such an involved thing, supply chain, cost team, the quality team, supplier relationships, all of these things to get these displays. But because all phones are fairly similar format, you make a small change like sharper corners and it makes quite a dramatic visual difference. And then if you imagine that same process again with cameras, and then also if you've got any new hardware, which we're debuting on this product, a periscope camera. A large component compared to what we dealt with before. Instead of the sensor being in line like a standard camera, the sensor is actually on its side, and then there's a periscope to redirect the light. But what that means is it is thicker than the others, so it does protrude more, and then there are things that are affected like the PCB. It sits on top of the PCB. If we were being very basic about it, we might get a bubble and just make a really big bubble to house it, but it would be massive and then it wouldn't really work. What is the fundamental approach to accommodate this?
How long do you have during this spec brief phase before you get to something that you're sending off to the team for production?
Kind of like 3 months from the point where we kind of have the official kind of project kickoff to pretty much having to fix the industrial design.
The industry in many ways wants you to just slip into just doing what everyone else does, and we're determined not to do that. So that's why we're thinking about phone 3A, phone 3, phone 4A, phone 4, where we might want to go with those things. For us, we're really precious about what we do, and we want to make sure that each product is worthy of the nothing name.
Speaking of that, right, you're coming off of phone 2A, which was extremely successful. How much of phone 2A do you actually bring into something like this?
In relation to 2A, we kind of felt like this had quite a friendly kind of overall feel to it. 3A just wanted to feel a little bit more grown up as a brand. We're kind of growing up a little bit more, and the kind of the design of the products helps kind of reflect that a little bit.
After the briefing, my colleague showed me the countless designs they explored before landing on this one. Which reminds me, we're giving away one phone 3A to one lucky subscriber who comments below. Winner to be announced in the coming weeks.
After you guys go through the briefing, the spec phase, all that, what's kind of the next step there?
Starts off very simple, just sketching in our notebooks on a scrap piece of paper, pinning stuff up.
Maybe the early sketches is quite fundamental stuff, like the layout of, do the cameras go here or here or here. Later, you might be doing tiny details.
What other camera layouts did you guys play with before kind of landing on this one?
These post-it notes are probably some of my early stuff when we knew that we had to work with this periscope. And a lot of these early kind of ideas, the early thinking was quite a long way off where we ended up.
It's kind of things like this, like trying to figure out, can you put 2 cameras here and 1 camera above? This one, this kind of sideways face. That's like quite a detailed illustration that Chris has done. It's starting to take shape.
The process isn't always linear. Don't always just sketch and then move on to computer and 2D and then 3D and then prototyping. You're kind of using all these different tools in parallel throughout the whole process.
Maybe the important thing is early in the project, kind of getting the vision for what the product could be. So you get, maybe it's a model or maybe it's a render or it's something, and you kind of think we've got the magic. And then after that, you're just trying to look after that. And I think that's the thing. It's kind of messy. I think we don't know what we're doing half the time. Probably means that the right thing is happening.
My friends are smart. There's no questioning that. But how do they translate their art into physical products? They even gave us a sneak peek at some of our future products.
I feel like you're going all in poker.
What was that? Did I just make my new best friend laugh?
Can you walk me through some of what we're looking at here?
Yeah, it's a big mix of stuff, right from the first visual models all the way through to a lot of kind of detailed exploration where we're kind of really focusing in on one particular part of the phone. But here, kind of looking at this lineup, this hopefully kind of illustrates how the design language is evolving. So coming from 2A and kind of knowing where we're going to be, it really helps us to kind of figure out how to kind of fill this space.
So that's phone 3.
That's phone 3.
Just gonna remove this so our editor doesn't kill us. Just one's for the fans.
Here's a couple of periscope camera modules similar to the kind used in the product. What you're really doing is you're trying to figure out how to arrange these in a way that works for engineering reasons, but also for design reasons, how it looks, but also usage as well.
I know you said this is similar to our periscope camera, but not exactly. It is ours this thick.
Ours, I think, is a bit thinner than that one.
All the kind of real complexity is kind of focused on this very small area. So as well as these relatively large camera modules, so we've got to fit the SoC, front speakers, front camera. There's a lot to pack in. Yeah, so designing that PCB that can fit around the cameras, you can kind of see how we cut holes to drop cameras down in different ways. Designing PCBs to potentially adapt to different versions of the product, it never really gets easier.
It seems like you handled the camera module in 2 very different ways. What you guys were thinking between these 2 right here?
We sort of have some depth here in this lower section, but here we've kind of got a front plate that's opaque. Well, this is physically less bulky than this. But actually this kind of feels lighter because there's more thin air visible, and it tells the story a little bit better. We were here for a bit, quite like it, but this one it just feels a bit more integrated, I suppose.
Haru would kill me if I didn't ask about the glyphs. Anything big new there?
You can kind of see that we've kind of kept the 3 distinct segments, but we have more granular control. So yeah, we built more functionality in the glyphs in that way.
You guys have way more options than I thought you'd have.
Yeah, you can kind of see, you know, the really small kind of details, the little red dot that we're kind of exploring. How can we really sort of embellish it and add that kind of really beautiful extra little detail in there potentially?
Yeah, the dot is kind of an interesting example of, you know, you kind of have an idea and then you realize actually that you can strip it back and you're doing too much.
How involved was the CMF process for this phone?
Yeah, CMF is right there. We think about that right from the start. Definitely worth talking to Lucy about it.
You heard my besties. Time to chat with my BFF Lucy and see how the CMF has evolved.
We wanted to evolve the pre-existing iteration. We had some additional materials that we were bringing in, an aluminium part here, which is a really nice metal finish. And then for our button, we had to figure out what we could do that was a sort of piece of logic that we could use across future iterations. So we had some ideas about a big red button, but then we thought if we put this on a particular color, it's going to look not so great. So we opted instead for a finish change, which means that whatever the material color is, we're creating that differentiation through having it be a polished finish and a different geometry. But with this, we wanted to kind of pick up on the metal parts that we had, keeping that iconic corner deco metallic, bringing this back in from phone 2A. But this is a much more complex geometry, so we worked on like a different kind of color scale here, which you can see it's a real small tonal difference, but it makes quite a big difference when you move it around.
The back being glass.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that?
We feel great about it, and you do get an extra level of clarity there that I think is really elevates the whole product. And also you have that thing where you pick it up and it's cold. A lot of the time how things feel in your hand, you don't really realise the sort of signals that they're sending to you. But yeah, I also really love this grey that we launched for the first time on phone 2A. So we wanted to make sure that we gave that colour sort of time to shine. It's quite easy, I think, to kind of reject everything after one season and then think about what's new, but for us, we're not really that interested in what's the sort of trendy colour. We're kind of forging our own path.
My best friends are probably missing me. Let's go check in on them.
Right, we did a piece last year that was those mean tweets and a lot of people, for lack of a better word, on some of the design aspects of this. How do you guys think this one's going to be received?
Probably some people will love it and some people will hate it. That tends to be what happens with our product. People kind of have a strong reaction to it, which is a good thing.
What do you think the worst thing someone could say about the phone is?
Good question.
Looks like OnePlus. Joke, don't put that. If someone said they've copied this other, that would be a bit annoying because it really didn't come about that way.
I've been around long enough to know that you guys include some certain Easter eggs in each phone. Can you speak to any in this one?
If you look on phone 2, you see something which looks like a little switch. Actually, that functionality in a roundabout way has finally made it onto phone 3A with this function, but it's not a switch, it's a single button.
How does it feel seeing this phone in front of you, knowing that it's going to be in our fans' hands soon?
Just in the few months leading up to the launch, you start to see all the campaign stuff, and then it suddenly kind of takes on a whole different feel. Suddenly you see it feeling like much more real, just super cool.
So it's always exciting the day you launch something to see it for ourselves and, you know, see what the brand team have done, and then to see people start using it is great.
In a way, we're not just kind of thinking about the 3A launch in isolation. This is one of a handful of launches that are coming over the next few months that we think are all going to be, really, really strong.
And what do you guys consider success for this phone?
Maximum profit.